Namaskar, I'm Neil, and I welcome all of you to UPSC NU. In the last video, we saw an effective approach of trying to cover newspaper in as little time as possible. In this video, we're going to see the illustration of those principles. I'm going to take up Indian Express for 18th of January, and we'll see how to extract the maximum out of the newspaper reading in the least amount of time. Before we begin, this is an about me page of sorts. You can find the details about me. I have attempted the exam 5 times, written 3 CSE Men's, 1 IFOS Means, 1 SCS Means. According to the interview called this year for CSE, IFOS, and SCS. That is about me. Let's begin with the execution of those principles. So this is Indian Express from 18th of January. And let's start. So on the first page, you see this news wherein the Good Governance Awards are being handed out to some of the district magistrates. So what I learned from this framework, so you see good governance is connected to all these headers, which as a matter of fact, you don't need to remember. You can generate all of these correlations with frameworks, a GS-based framework. For instance, agriculture is covered under GS3. Disaster management is covered under GS3. E-governance is covered under GS2. Energy is covered under GS3. Gender and inclusion under GS1 or 2. Healthcare under GS2. Central schemes in GS2. Innovative education in GS2. So the interlinkage of good governance with, so whenever you have question on good governance and means, you can speak of interlinkages of good governance with agriculture, and you don't need to remember it. Just generate points from GS. Think of from syllabus headers from GS2. Health, education, sanitation, skill development, amenities. Then from GS3, you can speak about economy, MSME. Then you can speak about startup and innovation. These points are self-explanatory. So I don't learn these headers, but the understanding of frameworks just stands reaffirmed by reading this article. So that was one good thing to come out of the reading of page number 1. Then I move forward, I see that on page number 5, so this is the Delhi edition. On page number 5, you'd see this news being repeated over and over again. Essentially the CM versus LG tussle. And for people who are reading on a daily basis, would realize that this article on similar lines have become a daily occurrence of sorts. So that means this is an important topic. Why? Because it is repeating over and over again. It is important, and also UPSC has twice in consecutive years have asked a question on this topic. So I will read this topic in detail from internet. Number 1. So that is what I understand from my reading of page number 5. Then I move forward. I see that there are political news related to crime, so not at all related to the demand of the exam. I move forward. Then there are some advertisements, again, political news, not important from the purview of exam. Now, this is an advertorial, but you could see that you can learn about frameworks and you can reaffirm your frameworks even from these advertorials. For instance, the advertorial speaks about the Global Investors Summit. See the pointers it is talking about. It is talking about infra support, so a topic from GS3 infra. Then fiscal incentives, a topic from GS3. Employment generation, GS3. Nivesh Mitra, GS3. Then, connectivity projects, inland waterways, GS3, right? So the point I'm trying to make at this, at this juncture is fairly simple. You don't need to remember a lot of stuff. You just, as long as you have internalized the syllabus, some of these frameworks become self-explanatory. So that is one good thing to, come out of reading the advertorial. So if there's a question on investment, I will relate investment with infra support, with fiscal incentives. How? I'm not going to memorize it. Now the knowledge that frameworks work like a charm is further reaffirmed. So I'll generate ad hoc points based on GS3 pointers. So that is what I learned from reading this page. Then I move forward. I go to page number 11. So in the first page, we saw how a lot of district magistrates were awarded prizes for their good work. Here you can make a note of some of those case studies. Right, so you see here There's this project goes by the name Punagai or Smile in Erode, and it is about connecting, remote tribal hamlet to the nearest healthcare facility by 5G system. Then there's another project from Odisha, Swikriti, and aimed at scaling transgender community providing. So these are case studies you can separately make a note of under syllabus headers. So whenever you're making notes for GS2, gender equity, there you can add this one small case study. And so the next time you read that topic under the same head, these value add would keep on getting internalized. Similarly, in for social welfare category of the deputy commissioner started in Jamtara club for the elderly. So there's a topic of vulnerable sections in GS1. There you can add this case study. That is how I think reading newspaper helps in gaining credible contemporary value add. If you read in compilations, you will find value add from 2-3 years ago. And so newspaper is the most tried and tested way to get your hands on quality value add. So then I move forward. I come to page number 12, Express Network, and I see that they speak about a rare duck species cited after 94 years. So I'm not going to memorize it. I just see the name. Name is Greater Skeo, if I'm pronouncing it right, and it is also called bluebill. That is it. So now in my subconscious memory, I'll try to internalize, try to feed that a greater scope is a duck. So if I see a similar name in examination hall, I'll be inclined to believe that it's a bird, it's a duck. Similarly, bluebill, red bill, white bill. If I see a name like that, I'd be inclined to believe that's a bird. That's what I learned from this page. I don't make a note of this at all. For prelims, no note making. I have reiterated it over and over again in the introductory video. Then we come to the next page. Again, political news which has little relevance to our syllabus. Again, this India and New Relation might seem fancy, but in my opinion, this has no bearing on our examination. Then here you see that collegium is being spoken about over and over again. The issue with collegium comes under the topic GS2 separation of power. And I'll see what I can extract from this article. So I have to extract keywords. I have to extract interlinkages. Interlinkages, I won't make a note of them. I'll just reiterate the interlinkage inside my mind so that I can generate points in the moment in the examination hall. I will make note of any value add that I'll, or any keyword that I might get my hands on. So see, they say proposed. So the issue is the proposed inclusion of government nominee in a new search and evaluation committee. That's a very, specific issue we're speaking about. I'm going to make a note of it. I can't generate this point ad hoc in the examination hall. So then a new search, which will shortlist names. Then I write that, this judicial primacy was formalized 1993, the second judge's case. I'm going to make a note of it. Then I say that in 2015, Supreme Court struck down Constitution Amendment to bring NJAC. So for people who are reading this topic for the first time, would be made aware of these topics for the very first time. So you can make a note of these, these basic set of information. Then you see that, NJAC was violative of parliamentary sovereignty, a beautiful keyword. I'll make a note of it. Questioning the basic structure doctrine. Again, another beautiful keyword. In the end, it says that it suggests a solution of sorts moving forward. It says that judiciary appoints its own. It needs to cast its net wider and make the criteria process more open and inclusive. So this is a way forward of sorts. There is opacity in the working of collegium and glaring lack of diversity on the bench, another issue. So I'll make a note of these issues. And that is it. Again, not relevant because data related to economy keeps on changing. I just rely on data in budget plus economic survey as far as economy is concerned. Then again, this article speaks specifically about the draft rules for the online gaming for public consultation. For one, it is not really important because these are draft rules. So these are not actual rules that have been framed until now. So don't pay much attention to it, but I'll just find out information which I can use as fodder in regulatory body topics at large. So this notion of soft touch or self-regulation could work in a variety of scenarios. Wherever regulation is being spoken about, even if it is not in context of online gaming, if it is in context of MSME regulation, in context of sports regulation, I just use soft touch principles, self-regulation approach. Another keyword that I hear about. Then it says that sector is crucial for India's leap towards $1 trillion digital economy milestone. So there's another piece of information I gathered, that our aim is to have a $1 trillion digital economy. So this is something I'll make note of. Then I'll move forward. This is a good article, again, has less relevance for examination, but I get a couple of fodder points from this article. Speaks about democide, which means the end of democracy. So I see certain keywords, talks about populism, demagogues. I'll make a note of these words. Then I see that the author speaks about, about the idea from writer Amitav Ghosh's writing, wherein the writer Amitav Ghosh speaks about the great derangement. What is great derangement? It is spoken about here. I'll make a note of this because I can use it in a number of ways. Wherever, threat to democracies are being spoken about, whether it's a question in GS2 or in essay or in ethics, I use that, author Amitav Ghosh speaks about the great derangement, which means such and such. Good value add, quality, contemporary value add. Then I read this. This article again speaks about the collegium. I find another new set of keywords. Speaks about, collegium. So speaks about what does a collegium comprise of. So collegium comprising the CGI and 4 senior most prison judges recommends the appointment of judges. Good piece of information. Then I see that the proposal will be destructive of the principle of separation of power, on which constitution is premised and which basic features. So again, we saw these keywords in the previous article too. I'm going to skip making note of these keywords, then checks and balances. And finally, I say that the author is suggesting a new way forward. Author says, one sure way of choosing the best available candidate is to allow the expression of interest and self-nomination, which will overcome present shortcomings of the system. So to find a way around the problem of vacancies, the suggestion of self-nomination could also be mentioned in one of your answers. So this is something I make note of. Again, in this article, I find this beautiful small shloka which says, Sa Vidya Ya Vimutte. That alone is knowledge which leads to liberation. I can use this in context of education on maybe New India. I can use this in n number of contexts. So again, I'll make a note of this. And the author also explains it well, wherein she says that, I imagine pedagogical practices imbued with the social purpose to remove all forms of discrimination. So again, a beautiful line. I can use it as it is verbatim in a lot of contexts. That is what I make note of. And then we move forward again. It's a very narrow topic that is being spoken about. I don't think it has any exam relevance. This has no exam relevance. This has no exam relevance, in my opinion. Again, this is a beautiful article related to population-related issues topic in GS1. And my focus is on India-centric steps on India-centric issues. So we see that, mortality and fertility. So whenever a question on population comes, I'm going to speak about mortality. I'm going to speak about fertility. I get that hint from the header of sorts. Then I see that the author speaks about CDR, true death rate, which is measured per 1,000 population. I get a data point. Our CDR is reducing, 1950, then it is 1974, then 2020, it is reducing. Similarly, our life expectancy is improving. You can see the data here. I'm going to make use of this data because I can use this data in a number of ways. So, and I will only make note of India-centric data. So this is, again, I'll make note of the data related to TFR, total fertility rate. And I'll also note how 2.1 is the replacement level fertility. Then the issue with reducing population in China is that, the working age population is projected to fall below 50%. Then what is the contemporary situation in India? That is all I make note of. And I make note of all of these snippets of information categorically under the subhead GS1 of GS1 population related issues. That is it. Then I move forward. I see again, there's a show of old pension scheme which is being spoken about. I see two good keywords speaks about fiscal burden. I'll make note of this keyword under economy. And the very basic difference is being spoken about here between old pension scheme and new pension scheme. OPS was an unfunded pension scheme, and NPS is a defined contribution pension scheme. That is all this article has for us as far as examination relevance is concerned. Again, this article speaks about the same regulatory draft rules and says that concerns over increase in compliance burden and stringent norms with implementation of new rules. So these are very generic problems wherever regulation is concerned. So if you have tight regulation, there'll be an increase in compliance burden, and stringent norms will lead to a decline in the user base. So I will make use of these points in a number of ways whenever the question comes on regulatory bodies, not specifically limited to the gaming industry. So that is how I approach. I try to think from a bird's eye view. I try to think from a place wherein I can use the same knowledge in different ways, and that is only it is only when then that I make note of that information. Then I move forward. I realize that that is it, right? At sports, if you do this exercise yourself, I assure you, this will not take you more than 45 minutes, including reading and then compiling this information under relevant heads. That is it. I think hopefully I'll come with a follow-up for other days also as and how we move forward. If this added value to your preparation, feel free to subscribe. If you want to connect with me, the details are given in the description box. Take care, and I shall see you soon. Bye.